Hello, everyone. My name is Urmika Kaul, and this is Japni Chabla and Niharika Sharma. And the topic we will be discussing today is ethical dilemmas in project management. So, moving on to the next slide. We're going to start by highlighting the importance of ethical choices in project management. And then we're going to discuss some ethical dilemmas in project management and conclude with the key takeaways from this discussion. So, starting with the introduction. Um, Project management ethics is an essential ingredient while managing different projects. So, according to PMI, which is the Project Management Institute, ethics is about making the best possible decisions concerning people, resources, and the environment. Ethical choices diminish the risk, advance positive results, increase trust, and determine long term success and build reputations. Leadership is absolutely dependent on ethical choices. The PMP and chair of the PMI Ethics Member Advisory Group stated that the ethics lead to trust, which leads to leadership, which in turn leads to the project's success. Because ethics is so key to executing projects successfully, the PMI has rolled out a code of ethics and professional conduct to help project management practitioners do what is right and honorable. The document articulates ideals to which a manager should aspire and defines behaviors he or she should adopt to be successful. The purpose of the code is to instill confidence in the project management profession and to help an individual become a better practitioner. Most importantly, it helps project managers make wise decisions. The code of ethics and professional conduct highlights ethical values such as trust, honesty, responsibility, respect, and fairness. The PMI has produced an ethical decision making framework. This document, which supplements the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, describes the various steps that can be used to guide a particular individual in the project management profession through a process to make a decision when confronted with an ethical dilemma. It is intended as a guide for critical thinking through the ethical decision making process. There will be many difficult situations where a project manager's moral compass will be tested. There will be times when he or she will face ethical dilemmas for challenges while managing various projects. Making ethical decisions is not always easy because not every ethical dilemma has one clear, correct answer. That's what makes it very tricky. During these situations, they need to be really careful to maintain their status as a trustworthy leader because once there is a lapse of ethics and the trust is shattered, it is extremely difficult to regain this trust and make things right. Shortcuts and underhand behavior sometimes pay in the short term but cause a lot of damage in the long term. A good project manager should adopt the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct as well as the ethical decision making framework, while senior managers and leaders should ensure that ethics permeate all aspects of organizational operations to be successful in the long run. Now, let's talk about some common ethical dilemmas project managers could encounter. So, we will discuss the following ethical dilemmas today: not protecting the interests of all the stakeholders, not remaining objective, violating the basic rights of workers, ignoring health or safety standards, harboring an unconscious bias, and making shady deals. So, let's start with the first one, which is not protecting the interests of all stakeholders. So, all stakeholders are equal, but some are more equal than others. Paraphrasing this quote, stakeholder management requires the project manager to master the art of diplomacy. For example, is the customer really always right, even if he or she is demanding that your team should work long 60-hour weeks to make sure they meet an unreasonable deadline? Whenever there are conflicting opinions, which party do you side with? It is very tempting for project managers to take the easy way out and listen to the most influential stakeholders, whether it is customers or superiors or sponsors. A project manager should play a more proactive role to assess the needs of the stakeholders. A project manager's professional responsibility should include the following, which is to establish and document every stakeholder's interest in a project and set various trade offs and boundary conditions in advance if possible. The second is ensure transparency and honesty whenever they're determining the impact of their decisions on all the stakeholders. And try to use negotiation and conflict resolution techniques to reach the most optimum decision involving all the various stakeholders. The project manager should never let their decision be taken by default and assume that the other side would never know that a decision has been taken. The next dilemma is not remaining objective. So, project managers often knowingly or unknowingly become biased towards one team over the other. So, the project manager must deal with teams and individuals whose roles are inherently adversarial nature on a daily basis. For example, in a software development project, there is the development team whose objective is to write error free code, and then there is the testing team whose objective is to detect the various defects in the code. So, project manager who has previously worked as a developer may favor the developers over the testers. So, this could lead to erroneous decisions and cause some damage to the project. A project manager's professional responsibilities should comprise of the following. The project manager should never take sides in technical conversations, as it is difficult to regain your objectivity once you have become an insider. And being objective is crucial, but so is appearing to be objective. Even simple things like spending all of your time with one group can create the impression that the project manager is prejudiced. In the life of a project manager, protocol is always crucial. Now I'm going to hand it over to Niharika, who's going to talk about the remaining ethical dilemmas.
The next ethical dilemma is violating the basic rights of workers. Let me begin with what are the employee rights. Employee rights are the practices put into places to protect employees in an organization. As an employer, your knowledge of employees' rights can be help you avoid potentially disastrous pitfalls at workplace. There are few employee rights such as freedom from discrimination, right to a safe and a healthy place, right to equal pay for equal work, right to reasonable work hours. It's extremely important to avoid violation since the penalties for non-compliance can be very serious. Common employee rights violations are unpaid compensable time, unpaid vacation time, employee misclassification, unpaid bonuses, whistleblowing, etc. A number of agencies are responsible for creating the laws that protect employees within the workplace, including the project managers can also help with their employees. If you feel that your rights have been violated and you have protection from these agencies, you can contact them directly or seek advice from an attorney for specializes in the field. Typically, if an employee's rights are violated, there are multiple ways for an employer to respond depending on what type of violations the employee has experienced, such as know your rights, know when to file the complaint, file your complaints, contact the legal agencies that can help and guide you, voice out for your rights. Moving on to the next slide. Another ethical dilemma could be ignoring health and safety standards. So there can be a lot of problems like confidentiality of medical records in a workplace, inappropriate discrimination against minorities at workplace, such as women and the gender discrimination and etc. Over pressurizing employees can jeopardize the health and safety of project team members. All employers are ethically required to provide a safe and a healthy workplace for their employees. Healthy and safety professionals, HSP, and managers may often be employed full time to achieve this end. This should be viewed as a non partisan provider of safety and health services at the workplace. The primary goal is to achieve a safe and a healthy workplace and to improve the health of the workforce. Management should also be aware that the guidelines have been deployed by a number of professional health and safety organizations for their members. In the instances when answer to ethical questions cannot be resolved, these guidelines can be consulted in conjunction with the discussion with the senior colleagues and everyone. Moving on to Japneet.
All right. So now we'll be moving to the last two ethical dilemmas, and that is the first one is the accountability. So accountability is nothing but accepting the blame. So there can be times in a project in the project management practices where things can go wrong, and even if they go wrong, it's important to kind of look at them from a holistic perspective and trying to understand which part did not go right and improve upon that. So the problem over here is that there are situations when the project managers try to place blame on others instead of understanding what exactly went wrong and sticking together as a single unit of team and resolving the issues. And so the mismanagement practices could happen due to lack of communication or lack of guidelines when the project was in the initial early starting stages. So blaming, putting blame on others and keeping a blame game going on can result in further issues instead of resolving them. And these can be maybe the internal conflicts and lower productivity and lack of trust among the other team members. So it is important to indulge in transparency, even with the stakeholders. The stakeholders should be apprised of what's happening within the team and what exactly are the obstacles which the team is facing, and try to contribute them in resolving them. Moving to the last ethical dilemma, that is the making shady deals. So monetary aspect is something which is very tempting to a lot of people, and it's not a surprise to anyone that it is really tempting, but at the same time, it is important to keep the interest of team as well as the organization and the reputation of the organization into the consideration while doing anything within the organization or a team. So making shady deals can involve working on the side with the stakeholders for maybe uh, a project which would result in conflict of interest, and it would result in conflicting of interest with the team, and it can result in a lot of financial as well as the reputational damages to the organization. uh, these damages can be really long term, and it can be really difficult to fix it when perceived from the organization's perspective. So it is important to prevent such instances from occurring by laying down clear protocols for communication, maintaining a transparency, and of course, there's a code of conduct which is laid down by the HR and the appropriate authorities, and each employee must be educated and trained upon that to ensure that they are adhering to the code of conduct. Finally, the conclusion part of our entire deck, and that is what are our key takeaways from the ethical dilemmas. So ethical dilemmas can certainly damage the reputation of the organization. These damages can be long term, and it is important that these ethical dilemmas are prevented, and wherever these are not prevented, they must be handled in a really critical manner, because it it can again damage the organization, damage the reputation of the organization. And how they can be prevented is by adhering to the policies and code of conduct within the organization. Communication plays a really critical role uh, in any of the ethical dilemmas we discussed so far, and it is important for the the teams to be in sync with each other and be transparent with each other. Every stakeholder should be apprised of the decision making that is happening, so that they can contribute and they can be a part of the decision, and instead of resulting in an ethical issue later on. So that was it from Neharika, Urmika, and myself. And these are some of the references which we use throughout the slide. And that's it. Thank you.